to talk about pop art, and you're going to create a pop art design, much like the artist Andy Warhol, which you see here, very exotic guy, created in his style of art. Pop art is something that began in the 1950s and 60s, and it basically created art out of any ordinary objects or commercial things, things that are mass produced or that the public sees in many locations or places and times. So it could be anything from any everyday object like a can of soup, the faces of celebrities. You might often see the Marilyn Monroe one. And so there's a lot of different types that you can find. So let's create one using Photopea. The first thing we're going to do is create a new document. So you go to photopea.com, or you can use Photoshop because the steps here will be exactly the same. Then we're going to click New Project, and we're going to create a new document. The first thing you need to do is make sure it's set to inches, and you want your document to be 8 inches in width by 8 inches in height and 150 dots per inch. And then you click Create, and that will give you a blank document like this. The other thing you're going to need is making sure that you have your ruler turned on. If you don't see this ruler here, you can do Control R on your keyboard, and it will hide or show the ruler, and that's what you want. And since we're measuring in inches, we're going to use 2 fingers or right click if you have a mouse on the ruler, so you see a menu and make sure it's set to inches. Usually it's set to centimeters or some other measurement, but you want it to be in inches. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide this into 4 squares by clicking on the ruler like I'm doing right now. I click on the ruler and I drag down, and I'm going to divide this into 4 equal squares. So I click up here to make a horizontal guide, and I click here to make a vertical guide. And now I have this divided into 4 squares. Now I am going to color each of these squares different colors, much like the pop art style. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the marquee tool or the rectangular select tool in Photopea. So you'll find the same tool up here in Photoshop, and we're going to select this top part of the rectangle like this, and you'll see it's selected now, and it's got the little marching ants that look like this. Then we're going to use the the paint bucket tool, the paint bucket tool, which you'll find usually hidden under the gradient tool. So look in here, look for a gradient icon, and scroll down. Look for the paint bucket tool because that's the one you want. And then you can then fill in the area you selected with a color. So if I choose a color down here, let's say I want red, I'll click on the red hue and then choose whatever red color I want. Click OK, and then I'm going to click on the area I selected, and it'll set it to that color. See how that's easy, right? So we're going to repeat these steps 3 more times by using the marquee tool, selecting this area, and then using the paint bucket tool. I'm going to change the color. This time I'll choose like blue. Click OK, and then paint bucket tool and click on the area, and it fills it with that color. And you see, very simple. Continuing on, just select the next area, choose another color. I'll choose green this time. I'll fill that in with the paint bucket tool, and it fills it with green. And then next, I'll pick one more picture. I'll pick one more square. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool and choose one more color, and then click on that and fill it in, and we're done. And when I'm done with my selection, see, I still have the marching ants. I need to go to the select menu and turn that off. So just select and choose deselect, so it's not selected anymore. So now that I've got my background set, I want to start putting copies of some object. Remember, something that's commercial, something that could be everyday thing. It could be a face of a celebrity. It could be an object. It could be various things. So I'm going to choose an everyday donut, something I found on Google. So here's a picture of a donut. What I'm going to need to do, however, is I'm going to have this picture not have a background, because I need to be able to see the color. So I need to take this image of a donut and take out its background. There's a lot of ways to do this, but the way that I'm going to do it is going to be by using the magic eraser, because this image has a white background, so it's a single color. In other cases, you might have to select the object by itself and then copy that because if it's got a bunch of other things, a more complicated background, you might have to do a more complicated selection. But I'm going to take this image and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go over back to Photopea. I'm going to make a new document. And I'm going to create a blank document and paste my donut in here. So I'm going to paste it. Control V or Command V, depending on whether you're using a Mac, PC, or a Chromebook. And do you see, so this image right now has a white background. I'm going to delete this background by clicking on this, the lock icon, and I'm going to delete that layer and then leave this layer alone. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eraser tool, and I could sit here and also erase all of the white, but it's easier to use the magic eraser. So if I click on the eraser tool, look down here, you find the magic eraser. And the magic eraser simply lets you select a single color, and it finds that color and it spreads out and deletes all of the same color. So this is all white, so it does an excellent job at removing the white. Now that I'm done, I'm going to select this donut, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into the other tab, the other document that I created. So I'm going to select all, and that would be Command A, or if you're in Photopea, Control A to copy, Command C or Control C, and then I'm going to switch over and I'm going to paste, Command V or Control V, and there's the donut. So now notice that we have two layers, the background layer and the donut layer. So I need this donut layer to be a little smaller, and you probably remember we have a command that lets you resize. If you're using a Chromebook or if you're using Photopea, make sure that instead of Command T, you use Control T. But if you're using a Mac, it's Command T. And when you do that, you get the little bounding boxes that let you resize this. So resize the donut or whatever object you're using so that it fits inside one of those squares nice and neatly as best as you can. Try to keep it as centered as possible, and then hit return or click on this checkbox up here when you're done. Okay, we're almost halfway there. Now that we've got the donut in place, we don't have the background anymore. We're going to make copies of that. So all I need to do is either paste or copy this layer. Paste this layer and then erase. I wouldn't paste it again because then I have to erase the background. I'm going to duplicate this layer by just doing Command J. I just select the layer with the donut and do Command J 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. And now I got a total of 4 donuts. They're all right here. So I'm going to use my Move tool, and I'm going to drag each donut and put it in each of the boxes like this. Pretty simple, right? So now it's time for the special effects. So to add special effects, we're going to need to do some adjustments in color to each of the donuts. So we're going to select each of these layers and add adjustments. So if I select this layer, for example, let me show you how I can add 2 adjustment layers, the threshold adjustment and the gradient map to change the color of the donut. So I am simply going to do this 2 more times, and then you're going to want to do all 4 yourself. So I'm going to do the layer menu, and the first layer I'm going to add to that is going to be the threshold, and it does this. So I've got this layer, and notice how everything is turning this color. That's because this layer affects everything underneath. So in order to make this only affect this layer, don't forget there's a button with an arrow that points down that clips the adjustment only to the layer right below. So if I click that, it makes it only affect that layer. And in the properties of this layer, I can adjust this so that I get a better contrast of the image that I want. So I don't want it to be too dark or too bright. I'm going to pick some medium to get the most texture in this image. Okay, so good job there. I've got my threshold. Now I'm going to do one more. I'm going to add a gradient map adjustment. The gradient map adjustment is the one that lets you add color to this as well. When you first add the gradient map, it starts out black and white, which doesn't really change much because this is already black and white. But if you click in here, you can change your own colors. So if I click here, I get this color editor. And then I can choose colors by clicking on these little boxes right here. So you literally have to click here, double click twice, and you get a color picker. So let's say I want it to be this pink color. That will be my dark shades. And then over here, white. So notice how the donut looks now. If this is what I want, I click OK. And finally, don't forget to clip this layer. Clip it by clicking here. And now it only affects the layer below. Sometimes this might be closed, by the way. So if you can't find the properties, you can just click here, double click it, and it'll pop up. And you can see the properties. Okay, so we basically repeat these steps for each layer. So these two layers correspond to this layer. These three also need the same effect. So I'm going to do this very fast now so you can see how it's done. And you choose your own colors with your own image. So in this layer, adjustment, threshold, adjust the quality you want, clip it. Okay, let me do it to all of them. I'm going to do this one too. Layer, adjustment, threshold. Okay, set it to the quality you want. There you go. And then last one, layer, adjustment, threshold. Set it to the quality you want. And clip it. So they're all clipped, right? Each one has a threshold, threshold, and threshold. Each one also needs a gradient map. So I'm going to go back up, select, don't click here because you also want this to be in order. I want the gradient map to be on top of the threshold. So I'm going to select the threshold layer and then do adjustment, gradient map. So see, I've got one on top of this one. Let's change those colors. Let's choose something else. Let's choose green this time. Okay, and then for the bright colors, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to choose like yellow. Like a really vivid yellow or something. Okay, so it's going to go from green to yellow. Oops. And you have to click OK. I made a mistake now, so I have to repeat this. I'm going to first make it green. Okay, and then this one will be yellow. I'll make it a very bright yellow like this. Okay, and then click OK. If you only close the box, then it undoes what you've just done. So make sure you click OK and then clip. Now it's clipped to that layer. So I'll repeat this two more times. Gradient map. So adjustment layer, gradient map. And there's some pre-made ones. Sometimes you could use these as well. Don't use black and white, however, because then it won't really change much. So here's a red to green. And then if I clip it, that's the effect. However, it does kind of have this sort of negative, opposite color effect, which may not look very good, but let's just go with that. And then we'll choose one more. So we'll choose the last threshold and we're going to do one more gradient map. Let's see if there's anything else here I could use. How about orange and yellow? Okay, the problem with this gradient is that there's orange to yellow to orange again. So I'm going to take out that second orange. Click OK and then clip it. Okay, so there we go. This would be the end, and now I can save this and turn it into Schoology or whichever method you have to submit your work. You're going to go to the File menu if you're using Photopea, and you're going to save as PSD. It's going to download it to your computer, and then you can turn it into to wherever you're supposed to turn it in. If you're using Photoshop, you're going to save as. Make sure it's Photoshop before you turn it in, and the work is done from there on. Okay, good luck.